Okay, real quick, before we get into the video. This alone deserves a fucking like. Okay, this alone. This is the biggest bitched about thing in all of my videos, that I don't make the bed. And everybody, like, if you're an OG subscriber from like a year or two ago, you'll know why I usually never make my bed. And the reason I used to never do that, if you're someone who hasn't been around that long, I had a cat for a very long time, and every time I'd make my bed, my cat would fuck it up, like, immediately after doing it, so I just never did it. But for this video, to appease the fans, okay, we made the bed. So I want to talk about the NBA draft for the Indiana Pacers, because I think it was a home run. There's a lot of people who I think a lot of Pacers fans didn't like this draft because a lot of the guys that were picked you maybe don't know enough about. Even I didn't pay attention to the draft at all, really. We made the Eastern Conference Finals. I heard this draft class sucks, right? Like, I wasn't high on it really at all. But the Pacers did very well. Most, sport agencies out there, news columnists, journalists, stuff like that, have been giving us an A, like a grade A on this draft for the guys that we took in the second round. Like, they gave us a solid A. And I want to talk about a couple things. I'm going to draw some player comparisons and stuff. But the first guy I want to talk about that I'm most excited about is Tristen Newton out of UConn. He's a guy that he's reliable, man. Like, I had to do a lot of homework on some of these guys, but Tristen Newton is a guy, or Newton. Tristen Newton is a guy that he went off in college this past year. I think he averaged like 15, 6, and 6 or some crazy shit like that. Back-to-back national champion. He's a guy that you look at and like comparison-wise, like TJ McConnell. He always makes the right play. Like, yeah, he's maybe not the greatest defender in the world, but I feel like he's like the insurance policy for TJ McConnell. He's a winner. Like, that's I think why the Pacers went after him. Just the idea that the dude is a fucking winner. He's, the shooting numbers aren't spectacular, 41% from the field. He did shoot 80% from the free throw line, so it shows that, he can shoot a little bit. 31% from three, 41% from the field, 80% from the free throw line. The dude is, I'm just like, he's just a good, like, solid basketball player. Like, he's not a guy that I think will ever really be a starter. But, like, if you have guys that get injured, like, if Andrew Nembhard or TJ McConnell gets injured, he's a guy that you can plug into the game, and you're probably going to be all right. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not a guy that I think will start anytime soon, but he's a really, really good player. He's a great leader. He can go out and win you a basketball game by passing or scoring, and that's the main reason I think I like this pick so much. And honestly, he's the guy I think I'm most excited for. But if I had to compare him to anybody, it'd be like a high motor guy like TJ McConnell. And I feel like that's the whole reason the Pacers picked him. And with the Pacers' history in picking point guards in the past couple of years, they traded for Tyrese Halliburton. Before he ever became the player he is now, they drafted Andrew Nembhard, who seems like a steal. We have TJ McConnell. This team is good at picking point guards, and that's why I have a lot of faith in Tristen Newton. I feel like point guards are the one aspect of drafts that we've been getting right, or at least like that whole category as a whole. That position we seem to do well with. Like, our front office just seems like they know what they're doing when it comes to point guards. So I love the Tristen Newton pick. Granted, he's 23, a little old, but in the second round, like, that's kind of what you're gonna get. Okay. So that's Tristen Newton. I think Tristen Newton's going to be a guy who's going to go into the G League. Like, all the guys we drafted, I think, are going to probably start off in the G League and be very, like, they'll be very good. Like, they'll progress, and I think they're going to become way, way better players if they all spend, like, a year in the G League. So that's my main synopsis on Tristen Newton. Now, the next guy I want to talk about is Enrique Freeman, because this is a guy that was just his story on how he got to the NBA is pretty crazy in itself. But when I look at this guy, I think of like a PJ Washington, a Cameron Johnson type of guy. He's 6'7", 6'8", great rebounder, great defender. He averaged, I think, 18 and 12 and shot 37% from three this past year. His first 3 years in Akron, he didn't even, like, he shot 6 3-pointers. Then this past season, he shot like 52 3-pointers, I think made like 20 of them. He shot 37% from three. And I believe he shot, I think it was like 56% from the field. He reminds me of like a PJ, like even a PJ Tucker. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's a guy that his defense is going to get him to the league. Will he ever be like Cam Johnson, PJ Washington, or PJ Tucker? I'm not sure, but that's the comparison I draw for him. Is like, he's a guy that he can rebound very well. Like, the thing is, he's undersized, but he rebounds very well. And I understand in the NBA size matters, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't always translate, but this is a guy who I think could easily be a stretch big, and I feel like that's maybe why the Pacers drafted him. Instead of trading for Cameron Johnson, maybe you can actually grow a Cameron Johnson, because I do think the Pacers need more three-point shooting, and I think they hit the nail on the head in this draft in the second round with a guy like Enrique Freeman, who, you know, shores up a bunch of things the Pacers are trying to get better at. You're trying to get better at defense. You're trying to get better at rebounding. Try to get better at shooting. And Enrique Freeman seems like he's a guy that provides all of that. So I really like Enrique Freeman. He's I was a little worried they were maybe going to play him at the center position, which is possible if you're trying to do small ball, you know, like 4 out, 5 out sets, which would be great for him, considering, like I said, he shot 37% from three. Now, granted, he was an all MAC player. I think he was the MAC player of the year. He was the top rebounder in the country, or not top, second best rebounder in the country behind Zach Edey. So He's got a lot of positives about him. It's just how well that translates to the NBA, we have yet to see. Enrique Freeman, though, a guy that I think has more upside than people would like to admit. Now, the last guy is our first round pick, or not our first round pick, our earliest second round pick, who some people even had him mocked in the 20s, and that's Johnny Furphy. Johnny Furphy is a lights out shooter. He shot, I think, 36% from three, and I think like 46% or 45% from the field. He shot 76% from the free throw line. I'm going to tell you right now, I think this dude is going to be like Chandler Parsons, or like a Rudy Fernandez type of guy. And if you know who Rudy Fernandez is, he plays for Spain. But Rudy Fernandez in the early days, back in the early 2000s, played for the Denver Nuggets. And he was a dude that just came off the bench and just fucking lit shit up. Like, I'm not even kidding. If you get a chance, pull up YouTube and look up Rudy Fernandez, and even Chandler Parsons, like what he did for the Rockets and stuff like that when he first came into the league. Johnny Furphy's got great measurements. He's a great catch and shoot three-point shooter. His progression from just like, you know, when he first was, I think he was he went to Kansas. I think he was a walk-on at Kansas or something like that. But it's just the idea, like, he's a really, really solid player. Like, he's good at getting to the rack. He's physical. You know, he's a guy that I think defensively could develop a little bit more. But when I look at him, I'm like, yeah, this guy reminds me a little bit of what Chandler Parsons was for the Houston Rockets. And I kind of think, like, that's maybe his ceiling in the NBA. I don't think Johnny Furphy's ever going to be a guy that you're building a team around, but he's a guy that, like, you could pull off the bench. You know what I'm saying? Like, I legitimately think he could be like a 6th man of the year candidate one day. He's a guy that, you know, he's great at shooting off the, like, catch and shoots. He's great at shooting while moving and shit like that. Like, he's just got it all, you know. And he's an Aussie, and I'm at a point where I kind of like the idea of Aussies in the NBA at this point. He's a guy that I just think he's incredibly underrated. There was a lot of people who said this is a guy who could have arguably went in the first round. Like, I'm just gonna call it what it is. This is a guy who arguably could have went in the first round. Had he went to like Oklahoma City, he's a guy that would probably become like a really, really, really good player. And I still think he will be, but I have a feeling for us, like, Johnny Furphy's a guy that I think is going to play in the G League and turn a lot of heads. Like, that's kind of where I'm at on Johnny Furphy. Like, he's a guy that I don't think is really going to be on our bench. Same thing with the other two guys. Like, the expectation for second-round picks needs to be here. Okay, like, that's the other thing. A lot of people are like, oh, I hate our picks. I hate this. I hate that. And that's fine. But understand, like, the expectation for second-round picks is, like, here. Okay? Like, Andrew Nembhard was striking gold, okay? But the thing is also Johnny Furphy is only 19 years old. He's relatively young compared to the other two guys that we drafted. And he's a guy that I could see us keeping around for quite a while. But I do think like just his progression in college basketball was pretty crazy. He went from a guy that was like, we don't know what he's going to be. And then he ended up being like the 4th best player for the Kansas Jayhawks. So he's a guy that I think, like, if you give him some opportunity in 2, 3, maybe 4 years, he's a guy that I look at, and maybe even in 5 years, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's a guy that I just think will be a role player on some team or a team that's, you know, trying to compete for a title. That's where I see Johnny Furphy. I think he, like in the NBA, he's a guy who'll be able to shoot about maybe 40% from 3, like 38%, you know, anywhere from 38 to 40%. But he's also like, he's great at finishing around the basket. He's an underrated passer. He's a guy that's like, if he improves on defense, man, like he could be a really, really good player. Obviously, like Rudy Fernandez was maybe a little bit of a faster player than Johnny Furphy is. But to me, this guy screams Chandler Parsons. And if you know about Chandler Parsons when he played for the Houston Rockets, that's a very good thing. Maybe even a little bit of a Manu Ginobili, which even that feels a little fucking crazy to say because of how good Manu Ginobili was. But that's what he reminds me of. Guys like that, Chandler Parsons, Rudy Fernandez, and Manu Ginobili, like guys like that who it's just like you bring them off the bench, right, and they come in and do their thing. We'll have to wait and see what these guys actually become. But I think all the picks were very, very good. You know, a lot of people, obviously, like, we didn't have a first-round pick, but we did get a guy in Johnny Furphy who's arguably a first-round talent. So I'm fine with it. I'm high on all of this. I don't think they're going to see any crazy meaningful NBA minutes. I do feel like this, though, the reason they drafted Tristen Newton is because I don't think Isaiah Wong's coming back. Oscar Tshiebwe would be cool if he came back, but I have a feeling this is their TJ McConnell insurance policy. Because if the Pacers do decide to make a trade for whatever reason here in the next 2 days, you know, obviously today's the 29th. Moratorium ends, I think, tomorrow on Sunday or at midnight tonight. We could see, you know, maybe a sign and trade with TJ McConnell plus a sign and trade with Obi Toppin, guys like that, to maybe land us another piece. It all depends on where the Legos fall, obviously, but this opens the Tristen Newton draft for us is like our insurance policy also in case like we offer an extension to TJ McConnell and he's not happy with it. That's the other part of this that I'd like to talk about. Is like, because we already know Jalen Smith's not coming back. Jalen Smith opted out. He's a guy that I think could get anywhere from $12 to $13 million a year someplace else, maybe even more. And TJ McConnell's a guy that's worth a whole hell of a lot more than what we're paying him now. So I just feel like Tristen Newton is the replacement for TJ McConnell. Enrique Freeman feels like maybe a Cameron Johnson, PJ Washington, PJ Tucker type player. And Johnny Furphy I like as like a Chandler Parsons, Rudy Fernandez, Manu Ginobili type of guy where you bring him off the bench or he could even start for you if he needs to, you know, every once in a while, and you're going to be fine. So I don't know, man. We'll see. But always remember, man, I reserve my right to change this if they end up sucking. It's just right now from face value, that's what it looks like. But as I said, man, if you're a Pacers fan, with second round picks, expectation has got to be down here. It can't be up here, okay? I know we got Andrew Nembhard, and people got kind of spoiled with that. They're like, oh, you know, Andrew Nembhard, it looks like a star, like a starting guard in the NBA at some point. And you would be correct, okay? Like, I think Andrew Nembhard is a guy who's capable of starting in the NBA for a team and leading an offense even. But he plays for us. I think he's going to be our starting 2 guard this year. But this is one of those things where I'm just like, I'm really high on Tristen Newton. I'm high on all these guys. And if we're out of all three players, the guy that I'm lowest on is Enrique Freeman. And the only reason I'm low on Enrique Freeman is because I think people are expecting him to be something different than what he's actually going to be. Like, even Dorian Finney-Smith is not a bad comparison for him. I just think Enrique Freeman is a guy that has a lot of upside if he just plays the right position. You know, he's not a guy that you can put down there at the 5 position and expect him to go toe-to-toe with Joel Embiid. You know what I'm saying? But he's a guy you could put out there maybe at the 4 who could play some defense, stretch the floor a little bit. The Dallas Mavericks were a team that, like, maybe made a little sense for him, or teams that are looking for stretch bigs. I like Enrique Freeman. We have yet to see what he's going to be. But, like, in order of how good I think these guys are going to be, if I had to choose best to worst, it's Johnny Furphy, Tristen Newton, and then Enrique Freeman. Like, Enrique Freeman's a guy that, like, if it doesn't go well, I could see him playing overseas probably in the next couple of years, or just in the G League or someplace. The NBL, I don't know. But, like, he's a guy that is, like, he's got more floor than he does ceiling, if that makes any sense. So all I'm saying is, man, like, I'm high on this. I think Pacers fans should be high on this too. I think this was a great draft for us, considering we didn't have any first-round picks. And that's another thing I think fans need to consider. You know, most second-round picks are out of the NBA within 3 to 5 years. So if these guys are still hanging around in 5 years, which I think at the very least 2 of them will be, Tristen Newton and Johnny Furphy. If you can get that, and considering, like, you know, where you had to pick and stuff, I think this is a home run. That's just my opinion. So tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. Like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report. And I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.